Welcome to Cpp.chat, an approximately bi-weekly look at what's going on in the world of C++, chatting with guests from the community. But before we get to this week's Guy, John has a disclaimer.
Thank you, Phil. All right, our disclaimer this week was actually generated on a website that generates disclaimers. Part of our disclaimer reads, Cpp.chat will not be liable for any losses and or damages in connection with the use of our website. Our disclaimer was generated with the help of the https://www.disclaimergenerated.net and the www.termsandconditionssample.com terms and conditions template. Termsandconditions.sample.com has an extra I in it that seems to be superfluous. By using our website, you hereby consent to our disclaimer and agree to its terms. So our guest this week is Guy Davidson. Guy has established a bit of a reputation as someone who is trying to take all the code that's common to every game in the world and put it in the standard. Is that fair, Guy?
No, it's not. Wow, that came straight out of left field. Thank you, John.
Sorry about that.
Welcome to the show.
Yeah,
Welcome
lovely.
to the show. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Thanks. No, I'm not. I guess. Well, maybe I am a bit. I've been writing games for.
I didn't think it was a pejorative question.
No,
I thought that was.
It's an interesting perspective, actually. I've been writing games for 40 years now. 40 years, my goodness. Wow, I need to stop and take stock of my life now. So I guess so much.
You should do something serious at some point, Guy.
Yeah. Did you know I used to be a missionary?
No, I did not know that.
Okay, that was quite a serious phase in my life.
I was also a missionary, but we can talk about that later.
Okay. That's not really CPP, is it?
No.
I'm
still evangelical.
Yes, I also. I guess I'm trying to bring HMI to the standard because all the programming I've done has been sound and vision and interactive stuff, not in a kind of a message loop sort of interactivity, but in a maybe well, like games, you click on things, stuff happens, and you're constantly being portrayed with immersive, exciting media and information and things like that. And I really want to see HMI in the standard rather than having to decide which library you're going to learn. I want to see people, being able to, out of the box, just make demos, make and pictures and things.
For those of us that are buzzword deficient, HMI is human-machine interface.
Human-machine interface, yes.
All right.
Actually, I was taken to task about this a little while ago because it's still not especially established as a field. Some people say HCI, some people say HMI, some people say HCMC. There's all sorts of. I know you have to work out which academic you're talking to, and then use the correct letters to talk to them. I'm not an academic. I did graduate, but it wasn't a particularly spectacular grade that I got. But I know what you mean when you say human computer, all the SG13 stuff. Yes. I'll stop rambling now. There we are.
Okay.
Yes.
That's the great thing about standards. There's so many of them to choose from.
Yeah. God. Yes.
There is a finite number of 3-letter acronyms, however.
Yeah.
But there doesn't seem to be a limit to the number of times they get overloaded. So
no, there is. Yes, we're going to run out sooner or later. Just having 3-letter namespaces is starting to prove challenging.
So speaking of acronyms, I was hoping you could educate me about something that I learned just enough about to be further intrigued, and that is it's in an area that you've been working on as a potential for the library standard, and that is in linear algebra.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the libraries that I heard of was something called BLAS, and I didn't really know much about it, and this isn't my area, so I didn't really. But one of the things I just recently learned is that this is actually kind of an industry standard, and there's lots of extensions, and it's available in lots of languages. And so I'm kind of hoping you could enlighten me, and maybe at the same time a few other people in our audience that might not know, also like me, lost. This is intriguing to me. What is BLAS? where did it come from? What's going on with that?
Right. Okay. I'm first of all going to add my own disclaimer, which is I've been writing linear algebra libraries for a long time, but I haven't made much use of BLAS because BLAS. So BLAS is originally it was written in Fortran. BLAS. Sorry, let's start with the acronym. Means Basic Linear Algebra Subprogram, and that word subprogram is a bit of a clue to its
age.
Its age, yes, and its distance from C++.
So it is quite old.
It is, yeah.
And therefore it's a blast from the past.
Oh,
mate. But today we would call it BLAL because it would be a basic linear algebra library.
Yes, the BLAL. That's nice. The subroutines or subprograms are originally written in Fortran. There are various other language bindings, but there are no standard ones. One of the things that people do is write a C++ binding for BLAS. This happens quite a lot.
It seems a natural.
It does seem a natural thing to do. It's like writing a string class. I'm sure we've all written at least one string class in our lives. I've written about, I don't know how many I've written.
I've written a whole string of them.
Oh, wow. So I'm speaking to the straight guy, aren't I? Right. Okay.
Welcome to my world.
Yes, indeed.
You are the straight guy.
Yes, I am the straight guy, aren't I? So where was I? Yes, the basic linear algebra subprogram. The thing about writing a C++ wrapper for them is that whilst the BLAS is extraordinarily efficient, it's available in double and float. There are things to worry about storage, and it has a very particular set of use cases. And one thing that we wanted to do with the linear algebra proposal was to enable a more diverse way of optimizing writing a linear algebra library. I've written 4 full linear algebra libraries since about 1990 in C++. And as each one has advanced forward, I've had new considerations to think of. My first was written without the help of a maths coprocessor, for example, and I used fixed point integer to do all my maths because I was modeling the universe. Actually, I was modeling the space from Greenland to Yemen. I'll tell you about that one day. And 32-bit arithmetic is enough to give you 1 millimeter resolution from Greenland to Yemen. There are 4 billion millimeters, or is it what meter? Anyway, it's enough for 32. And then suddenly coprocessors came along, and so I wrote another library to take advantage of that. And then SIMD came along, so I wrote another library to take advantage of that. And lots of people write lots of linear algebra libraries. But actually,
let me ask you a question now.
Yes.
So as you're iterating on this, well, it's not a library, you actually started from scratch. Is the interface something that you held constant, or was the fact that, we have to rethink the interface because now we're trying to do something a little more ambitious in the implementation?
The proposal offers a matrix and a vector class, and that's it. And the operations to multiply matrices and vectors, and matrices and matrices, and vectors, and to add and subtract and do all that kind of work. And that interface is quite simple. Now, BLAS doesn't have things like operator overloading, because this wasn't a facility that was available to Fortran or C. I don't believe it was available to Fortran. My Fortran is very, very rusty indeed. I think I did something.
I'm not even sure that Fortran has operators. I think it uses .eq. No, I'm kidding. There are operators. But,
yeah.
The universe of operators in Fortran, I think, is limited.
It's tiny. Yes, the lovely sugary syntax of C++ is oh so sweet and not to be discarded. So one thing that the linear algebra proposal offers is the opportunity to put BLAS into the standard, I suppose. It allows, we can map an interface to BLAS directly into the standard, and then we can wrap that up in the class, the matrix and vector class that we're proposing. But it doesn't have to be BLAS. If you've got something that's more appropriate for your uses, for example, if you're working on you're working on geometry, for example, and you know that you're going to be working in 2D and 3D maths then you might be able to make additional optimizations. But you can simply substitute those optimizations underneath, as it were, the matrix and vector classes, so that the API remains familiar to everyone. The main purpose of this is to give everyone a consistent API to use linear algebra against.
But it sounds like you kind of anticipated, I guess, one of the things I was going at when talking about if the interface changed. But you're saying that the only thing that you're proposing, at least at this point, is the vocabulary. In other words, you're just saying this is what a vector class looks like, and this is what. And we should say we're talking about a mathematical vector class, not an STD
Indeed.
vector class. This sad naming issue that
we find ourselves with. Yes, I mean, certainly when I first came across C++, well, actually when I first came across the STL and saw vector, my heart leapt and then sank in very short order.
Yeah. If it's any consolation to you, Alex regrets that name. Alex said he was told that what he was developing was called vector, and that was the name that was used for that kind of class, and so he accepted it. The problem he had was he said, I don't really know what's a better alternative for that particular class. I would like to call it an allocated array. So I would call it an AA, which is easy to type and very short, and just say, oh, it's an AA. It's an allocated array. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And, vector is just kind of this thing that starts at one point and goes infinitely in one direction. And, wow, that's what this container does, kind of. But it's a pretty rough analogy, I think.
Yeah. Well, do you know what? Alex has done amazing work, and I would like to shake him by the hand if I ever meet him. So I'm going to forgive him for vector. I'm not going to hold that against him. Thanks for the whole thing, really.
So anyway, so what you're saying is that we're looking, at least at the first step, is to just look at the vocabulary. Just here's a matrix class, here's a vector class. What you do with them is up to you. But because we want libraries to be able to interoperate,
yes,
and leverage each other's work, then we want to have to have these vocabulary things. One could actually argue that all you really need is a concept, right? That way somebody could implement their own vector and matrix class as long as it fits the concept.
That would be nice. That's a little bit further down the road. We haven't reached the stage of making proposing this to LEWG yet. We're having monthly linear algebra telecons to iron all this out. There's there's a lot of interest in this. It's very gratifying. But then linear algebra is fundamental to most of modern mathematics. So it doesn't surprise me that there is, keen anticipation for this, and also a desire to get it absolutely right. We only really get one shot at this, and if we get it wrong, we'll live with that for a long time.
We'll be in vector bool world.
Oh, don't.
Your mistakes will multiply.
Yes, indeed. Yes. Yes, if I find myself in that position, I might, take up project management or something. I don't know. Yes, we have to get it right. We really do have to get it right.
But so you're not even far enough along that you are ready to make that kind of proposal. You made it sound like you don't actually have. You're not actually talking to LEWG or. I guess L library. Yeah. Library
So we presented it at Hawaii, Kona. That was it, Kona. So we presented the paper in Kona. It was it was well received, and we're still iterating on it. We'd rather keep iterating and just keep talking to people all the time until it's ready to go further. It's pointless. I should point out that I have a co-author here, Bob Stiegel. He's actually, he's doing quite a lot of the work here. But we don't want to simply wait until we've run out of ideas and then show it to people. Everyone's having ideas all the time. Let's just keep all the ideas, streaming in and update and modify the proposal to reflect the good stuff that's coming in, the good opinions that people are having.
Right.
It's a great process.
Are you finding you're getting conflicting ideas though?
I guess all ideas conflict. People have opinions that that vary.
And some people are very opinionated.
Do you know what? We're not finding that in this community. It's beautifully collegiate, the linear algebra community. At the moment, I don't know. Somebody might turn up in a few weeks who's maybe a little less collegiate and a little more opinionated. But right now, it's really it's a pleasure to work with all these people and to attend the telecoms.
So, one of the things that Bryce has talked about a lot, and Bryce has thought about the philosophy of this a lot, is what belongs in the library, because he's kind of now at the edge, the raised edge of this, or whatever you want to say, the sharp edge of what's being put in, not what's put in the standard, but what's put into the process, what's being entered into the process. And one of the things he says is we don't want to look for things where there's research going on. We want to standardize something that's a settled question. But it sounds like there's not, how do I say this? It's not like there's new research on how to do a matrix, right? It's instead, how do we express this? But of course, that's also, if that's still evolving, then that means it may be premature to talk about standardization.
Right. So mathematics obviously is very, very slow moving. There is, and linear algebra has been settled for quite some time. The fundamentals, matrix, vector, the operations available to them, the behavior one might expect of them, that's been stable for decades now. The implementation of them is still an evolving matter, but we're not talking about providing an implementation. The standard doesn't mandate implementation, it mandates API.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure that the API that we're presenting is the kind of API that won't require teaching. It should be sufficiently obvious that there's not going to be pages and pages in textbooks in the future describing how to use the linear algebra library. It should simply be, here's a vector, here's a matrix, here's operator plus, here's operator multiply. It does what you think it would do. Let's move on to the next chapter. And I think that's the value that you can bring to the standardization process, is that if you can bring something that doesn't need teaching, that is so obvious, then that seems like a win to me.
Yeah. The question, though, is, don't you need to have the next step at least in an exploratory way? In other words, I might be able to, at least hypothetically, you or someone could create this vocabulary type and say, look, this is well thought out and it works in lots of scenarios, but the proof is really in, okay, let's see some people actually use this, not just, there's lots of linear algebra libraries that work like this, but no, let's take exactly this and let's implement some non-trivial things on top of them. I mean, that's what I would like to see before. It's kind of like, you don't ever want to standardize when you've got the thing perfect. You want to standardize when the layer built on top of it looks like it's perfect.
That's a really good point. I know that, so Klaus Eagleberger, for example, he is the author of the Blaze library, which is yet another linear algebra library. It's a very good one as well. He's keen on re-implementing, on implementing the proposed linear algebra interface in the same way that he's done Blaze, as far as I'm aware. He's quite supportive. Actually, I'm going to speak to the Munich meetup a fortnight today. This will be straight after. I'm going from Cologne to Munich to speak to the meetup on the Monday evening after Cologne. This is Klaus's native meetup, but he's keen to build using these interfaces. We're getting interest from other library authors who are keen to see this work. I suppose, we have a repository. Of course, we have a repository that's got a sample implementation, and we're keen for people to bring forward other implementations. I know what you're saying about there needs to be some proof, but I wonder if, certainly in the field of mathematics, that the burden of that proof is more the understanding and comprehension of mathematicians and users rather than direct and extensive implementation. That kind of thing is probably more suitable for, say, audio, where you need to see an audio library working and being hammered away and used and being effective, because audio is very much a domain-specific application.
Okay, well, I wanted to get to audio, but I guess I want to kind of explore this a little bit in the sense that I firmly believe, and it's because of my own experience and my own lack of imagination or whatever you want to call it, but I've very often found that something that I thought as I examined it, I said, oh, this will work perfect. This is exactly what I want. And then when I start building on top of it, it's like, oh, I guess I didn't anticipate that this is what I would actually want, or that it would go down this path, or maybe it works. But now that I see it and how it's working, I realize, oh, there's this obvious optimization. Why didn't I think of this, 6 months before I thought of it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, I guess this is why we haven't just brought it straight to the committee and said, here we are, here we go.
Which I, by the way, want to applaud, because I think there's a lot of things going to the committee way before they need to. And it sounds like your attitude is that, we'll serve no wine before it's time. We'll take our time to get there appropriately.
Yeah.
And I definitely want to applaud that. I definitely have felt like there's a lot of things that are in the committee that really are not ready for being in the committee. They're way ahead of themselves. They may be great ideas, but there's a fullness of time that needs to happen before we lock it down permanently, which is, the thinking right now in a lot of places is that our ABI can never change. So we put something in the library, if you want to change something, you got to basically give it a different name and start all over, because there's no changing this API at all. The binary API.
Binary interface. Yeah. I guess I'm certainly in no rush. I'm not in a hurry. I don't have a deadline to meet. I mustn't say, right, linear algebra must be ready to go by C++ 23. I mean, it'd be good if it was in by C++ 23, because, we haven't even published 20 yet. And I would like to think we'd be able to iron this all out. But I want it to be right, not quick. I wanted to go into the library when it's ready.
Yeah.
And I do agree that there does seem to be quite an alarming rate of entry into the library. But if that's what the committee believes is the way, that's the point of the committee. It's the will of this large group of people.
Yeah. Well, I'm advocating that people push back on those things because of its set in stoneness.
Yeah.
It was actually Michael Case who made the point to me that he believes the future of Boost is that it can break its ABI. Boost doesn't do that willy-nilly, but if a Boost author realizes this is wrong, can be improved, but it will break backwards compatibility, the author can make that call. And it's not happening. Nobody does that willy-nilly because people have too many users who will scream. But this is something that a Boost author can do. And that is something that I think is the standard library, at least in theory, used to be able to do it. But it sounds like Unix vendors and others are simply saying, no, we're never going to accept the breaking change. Our promise to our customers is that everything is backward compatible forever.
Yeah. This is something that's quite new to me. I've only been really working with the committee for 2 or 3 years now. I think I went to my first meeting in Toronto in 2017, summer 2017. And I come from a Windows background, and this whole ABI business is strange because for me, the ABI breaks every time Visual Studio comes out. There we are, new ABI. Although I must applaud, since 2015, it's been, forwards compatible. It's been stable for a long time. That's been, been marvelous.
It's about the time I moved on from Windows.
Yes. But yeah, the ABI issue is something that we do have to take seriously. I think next time, I think it's Titus. Titus said that next time we break the ABI, it needs to be the last time it's at all painful. That one of our tooling goals is to ensure that we can, that we can effectively tool for new ABIs and new implementations.
There is a paper in the Cologne mailing specifically for talking about when and how often we can break ABI, if at all.
I'm still
So we
working
can
my
actually
way.
have that discussion.
Yeah, well, I'm still working my way through the mailing. I haven't got to that paper yet. I probably won't read them all, but it's so much text.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's huge. And I actually have a day job as well, and a family. And I'm keen on sleep. You know, I do like a good 6 hours a night. You know,
Pick two.
Yeah, exactly. Yes,
Six.
6 hours a night, and you know, I do find obviously actually some of the papers are quite soporific. I'm finding. Do make quite good bedtime reading, but that doesn't help me get through them because obviously
No.
you don't want to turn up to you don't want to turn up at a meeting with a half-formed understanding of a paper.
But I'm very glad to see you making that attempt. I think a lot of people have given up. There are so many papers. It's just easier to say, well, I'll just sit in there and I'll listen and I'll share my brilliance on the time. And I think that's the quality of the standard is going to die a lot if we allow if that becomes the norm. And
I've seen people drift into meetings with that attitude, and they stick out a mile. You can tell when somebody hasn't actually read the paper when they're trying to bluff it, and you're thinking, "Mate, you're bluffing this. I can stop talking. I can tell. You will serve the committee and the standard enormously if you just shut up." Really, you know, it's not something one can say in open meeting, though. Really.
Yeah, I guess that is the diplomatic thing. I would say call them on it, but yeah, it's but I can understand why. You know, there was a time, this is a few standards ago, when some people really did read all the papers, or at least familiarize themselves with all the papers, and that's simply not possible now. Even if somebody didn't have a day job, if their full-time job was, I'm just going to, you know. I don't think you could do it. I don't think you could do it. You might be able to do it either just for language or just for library. But I don't see how anybody at this point can even really be familiar with all the things that are going on in the whole standard.
I think the last mailing for Hawaii was the volume of text was greater than the complete works of Shakespeare.
Yeah,
and a month I can read that in a month.
Yeah. But at least the spelling was standardized.
Yeah.
Actually, there's a few papers about that as well.
Yeah,
of course there are.
Spelling. Pronunciation is another thing. Whilst I'm here, I'm just going to say one thing: tuple. Yes. Okay? Can everyone stop saying tuple? And it's not. It's tuple, like quadruple.
Like, you sure it's not tuple like couple?
No, if it had two P's, it'd be tuple. It has one P, so it's tuple, and it's not tuple. It's tuple. It's just a hobby. I'm sorry. I'm awfully particular about this kind of thing. Don't get me started on math versus maths either.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, is that your next plan? My, what a surprise.
No, my next plan was to talk about audio.
I hear you.
So one of the areas you've been working on has also been, as part of, as I said, your grand scheme to find all the similar code, all the code similar to
I like to
software.
I like to call it the Great HMI Conspiracy.
Yeah. So I saw your presentation. I guess it was mostly Timur's presentation at Kona on audio. I think that went over really well. And one of the interesting things about it is that nothing that was discussed actually had anything to do with audio. In other words, it's a set of tools so that if you're doing audio, this is what you need. But it could be used by other people. And there is no place in there where you say, okay, now set the speaker to this. It's not like that.
No.
It's really just a data structure with the infrastructure necessary so that you can process data quickly.
Yeah.
So that you can keep up with real time moving that speaker. Because if you forget to move the speaker, that's noticeable.
Yeah. Yes, it is. You'll get a pop straight away.
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying the audio process. I really must, draw attention to Timo here because he's done the lion's share of the work. I originally approached Guy Somberg after he did a talk at Cpp.con in 2017, I believe it was, about audio, and he said, "Hey, maybe we should have a standard audio." We kind of got together and thought, yeah, this would be a good idea. He comes from games, I come from games. I thought this would be easy, and then I realized, oh, actually, our domains are very narrow and very focused. And I already knew Timo from the BSI and from all sorts of other things, and brought him in, and he's really run with it. And he's really he's got a lot of experience in the audio field.
Well, yeah, unlike you guys, ha ha ha.
You're not the first to say that, I can assure you.
Yeah, I'm sure. He's not a game guy. He actually is an audio guy. I mean, that's his area. He's the audio guy. So he has as you say, your focus might have been pretty narrow. He's going to have a broader focus, but still focused on what can be done in audio.
Yes, and audio is very stable. It hasn't really changed for 20 years. It's again, it's one of those things that's. Oh, who was it? Somebody described the standard as where libraries go to die, because that's it. They're all done now, right? No, there's no more work being done. They can put them in the standard. They're not going to change. And this is the thing with audio. It really hasn't changed much for 20 years.
Yeah. So where is the status of that?
So we now have implementations for OS X and Windows. Guy Somberg has done the Windows implementation. Timo has done the OS X implementation. We're looking for someone to do a Linux implementation. There are better.
Okay, hang on one second. Let's step back.
Okay.
I described this and said, there's no speakers involved. What exactly are we talking about now in the audio? What is that library?
So the library is for recording and playback. So there are speakers involved in that. There is an implementation that will wiggle your speakers. It's for Mac and Windows. We're at the second revision. We're R2 of the paper. We have you can go away and get the repository and play with it, give it a go. We want to put it into Boost so that other people can have a go with it. But it's I think Cologne's going to be an interesting meeting for the audio paper because we have lots of extensive feedback from Apple, but we're feeling like we're running out of things to change and running out of things to do. We do appear to be homing in on a stable API, something that we could, something that's good to go.
So what exactly are we talking about now? You have an audio data, whatever it is, could be in different formats, but essentially it is a digitizing of the amplitude of the sound wave.
That's right. You have a big buffer, and you send the amplitudes to the speaker. The speaker will read that the controller will read that buffer, send that to the speaker. We're good to go. You can identify. You can query for devices. And then you can say which device maps which buffer, what speed it's going to run at, all those sorts of things.
So it's just a large data structure is what you're really talking about.
Yes, we've actually. The interesting part was how we ended up using MD-SPAN. We started off with. Is everyone familiar with MD-SPAN, or am I speaking nonsense here?
I think I know what you're talking about when you say span, but I know what a string span or a
MD-SPAN is a multidimensional array.
Okay.
And again, this is something that the linear algebra people were working on. And the multidimensional array allows us to, we can either, so you might have, for example, two channels, left channel and the right channel, and they're interleaved. And so you need to work out, are you spanning the data by channel or by time? And it doesn't matter. MD-SPAN does all of that for you. So yes, it's a big data buffer that's being sent to a speaker.
So the library does some striding internally to figure out,
yes,
are we slicing this way? Are we slicing this way? And
yeah, that's right.
Okay, all right.
There really isn't. It really is quite simple. It really is quite beautiful and simple to use. I'm very impressed with the work that's gone in. It's great. I really haven't done much of the programming. I've been more of a project manager for this one, as I've let Timo and Guy Somberg thrash things out.
So you said something.
At this.
You said something before the show. You said everybody should spend some time doing project management.
Well, if it's with these two people, they certainly should. They've been great.
Yeah. So what would people learn? What would a programmer learn by stepping back and being a project manager instead of a programmer?
Well, the first thing you'd learn is about letting go of your own ideas being supreme. The supremacy of your own ideas is a fallacy. Everybody has ideas that suit different contexts and different different authors and originators of those ideas, and you have to listen to everybody and be objective, and but also trying to keep everybody happy and running together nicely, and making sure the work is evenly distributed, and just keeping everybody happy. I think is the best thing about project management. Delivering obviously delivering the product is the very reason for it, but doing this whilst stopping everybody from trying to kill each other. We haven't got to that stage yet, and I'm sure, but I see it as an interesting aspect of project management. It's just the people management side of it. It's an interesting skill, because I don't know, you try and bring your engineering brain to it, and that's the completely wrong thing to bring. You need to bring your people brain to it instead.
Right. I think Phil and I have some experience running events, and that's essentially what an event is, right? It's a large project.
Yes.
It's not the technical part is just figuring out what content you want to have, but the rest of it is just all people skill, right? I mean, it's just.
I run an event as well for the programmers at Sega, where I work. And,
really?
Yes, and that's it's a programmers conference, but it's just internal. It's just people in the in the Sega studios, and yes, it's an entirely different experience from day-to-day programming.
So we mentioned Timur a few times already. We had him on the show before, but that was just before he started on Stud Audio. So I think we need to get him back on.
Get him on. He can talk about it much better than I can.
We'll get him back on. We'll approach him about coming back on. But I will also put a link to one of his talks on Stud Audio in the notes. So that's definitely worth watching.
Link to the repository as well. That'll be helpful. People should see it and marvel at it.
Sounds like a sound idea.
Oh no. Bang.
All right. So what else do we want to talk about? I guess when I was thinking about the project management, I was thinking about how do you as a programmer now, do you have a better appreciation for what the project manager is dealing with? Or
yes. Yeah. I've always shied away from project management. I look at it as a thing that needs to be done because people need to pay for what I'm doing, and so they have to say, well, all right, Guy, look, this bit of code here is really valuable to the company. Please spend 3 weeks on it. Please stop tinkering with that. Nobody needs it. Just stop it. Do it on your own time. Do it at lunchtime, but not that sort of thing.
I've always felt that way about builds. It's like somebody needs to figure out how to build this, and somebody needs to do the builds. Please, God, don't let it be me.
Yes. God, yes.
The people who do builds are sainted people, but I am not one of them.
Oh, it's yes, indeed. The thing that I'm finding about the project management is that by not working on the code and just by watching everybody else writing the code, I'm learning. I think I've got a larger opportunity to learn about other people's coding styles and to learn more about programming just by spending my time reviewing what they're doing and looking at what they're doing and understanding what they're doing, rather than thinking, oh, how would I do this?
Mm-hmm.
And it gives an interesting perspective on where you are at the moment as a programmer and where you are, where you might be deficient or where you might, the stuff that you might not know. I think, it's like code review. Everyone should code review other people's code as much as possible. I think you learn far more about programming by offering code reviews than you do by, reading books and trying to write new things.
So all sounds very zen. You must stop talking before you can really listen.
Yes. Yeah, I'll buy that.
Yeah. So Phil's saying you must stop coding in order to really understand code.
Yes. Oh, I like that. I'm going to use that in my next talk, whatever that is. Some pieces
Zen and
of
the art of software maintenance. Yeah.
Please send your royalty check to
yes.
to Phil. Nobody would believe Phil said that because there was no pun in it. So,
there is
so it's going to be
I
hard
knew
for
there
him
was
to
a
assert
recording.
his authorship. Oh, okay. So let's talk a little bit about this event you mentioned. Boy, you talk about events and you get me excited. So you're doing an internal event for your company.
Ah, yes.
And you said that's Sega.
Yes, I work for.
I didn't realize you worked at Sega. I thought, what did I think? You creative artists or something? I didn't know.
Creative Assembly. So I work for a studio called Creative Assembly, and they are
Okay.
wholly owned by Sega.
Okay. Now I'm understanding. Okay.
Okay, and Sega have a number of studios around the country.
Sure.
And a few years ago, what happened was we had Scott Myers do our upgrade training to upgrade us all to C++ 14, and I got him in, and it was quite expensive, and so I got. It just was. It was quite expensive. And so I thought, let's get some other programmers in to share the load. And so there are a number of studios that Sega operates. And I said, hey, guys, are you interested in this? Do you want in on this? And so we all gathered together and we sat through 3 days with Scott Myers, delivering excellent training. We were all shattered by the end of it because it really was like somebody ramming caviar down your throat. It's like being force-fed foie gras.
And I want to make a very personal note here. I license that training and I give that training.
Right. Excellent. Okay, that's good to know. But at the end of the process, everyone said, "Wow, this is great. We should do this more often." I was thinking, "Oh, that's going to be expensive. Why don't we do our own conference and we provide our own content?" So it's an entirely homegrown conference, entirely homegrown content. Although we have one external keynote speaker. We had Kevin Henley, honestly. He'll hate me for that. Kevin Henley in our first year, and then we had John Jagger, we had Francis Buontempo. And then we had a fallow year this year because we had our C++ 17 upgrade training, which Nico provided. That was great. So having an internal conference is a great idea, and having homegrown content is an even better idea because it encourages people to actually stand up and speak about what they do and look at what they do. And one of my big topics at the moment, which I'm probably going to start speaking about next year, is how to be a better member of the community. The C++ community is huge, but it's full of consumers. It's full of people who just write code and who read books and who watch videos. And we need more people who give talks and who write books and who make presentations and who do all these kinds of things. But there are so many roles that you can step up for in the community. Program committee, for example, just picking one at random from the top of my head. The program committee for Cpp.chat was filled with volunteers. And program committees are an excellent way of serving. Mentoring, helping other people, all these sorts of things. There's a large talk brewing in my head, which I hope to unleash upon you all in 2020. But running an internal conference shows people that there's more to the C++ community than simply writing code.
So let me insert something here. I'm absolutely certain both of you guys know this. You will never understand anything as well as when you explain it to someone else.
Yep.
Giving talks is the best way for you to know. You're working on something, your project at work, and you think, gosh, I know, fill in the blank, graphics, encryption, whatever it is you're working on. And you think you know that. And I guarantee you, if you say, well, I'm going to give a formal talk on this to people at my company, you will learn more about it. You will understand it better. And it's really hard to say what it is you'll learn exactly, but you will understand it better. The ability to explain it means you've thought about it in a number of different directions, because you'll get these weird questions that you yourself would never think of. But when you get the question, you have to think, well, how I know what the answer is. How do I articulate it in that sense? And you will also find more connections of things where you knew this was true and you knew this was true, but only when you actually thought it through did you realize, oh, wait, those have to be true at the same time. There's a mathematical complete list to that. And you just thought of those as two separate things. But now you see, if one wasn't true, the other would also not be true. You know what I'm trying to say? You begin to understand in a completely deeper way. And so if you want to do something selfish for yourself, give a talk for other people, because your understanding will improve.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned so much about linear algebra just by doing. I've been speaking about linear algebra a fair amount over the past few months, as you can imagine.
And this is from someone who's done 4 libraries on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm still learning more. It's a bit of it's humbling, because I don't care how humble you are. Once you've written 4 libraries to do the same thing, you're going to think, do you know what? I know all this. You really are going to think that after your 4th iteration. You're going to think, no, I'm done. There's nothing more here. I've been so wrong. I really have.
There is a bit of a myth that you need to be an expert in a subject before you can give a talk on it.
No,
that's wrong on 2 counts.
No.
Well, one is that the definition of an expert is somebody that actually has a better appreciation of how much they don't know. The other problem is that this thing called the curse of knowledge. That when you do become not necessarily an expert, but someone who's really experienced for something, you forget what it's like to not know it. That makes it really hard to teach. Whereas someone that's just gained that knowledge is in a perfect position to pass it on to someone else. Obviously, there's caveats, trade-offs both ways. So as long as you're upfront about that, I think that's an excellent way to actually start speaking about a subject, is when you've just learnt it.
Yep. I will always I would much rather go to somebody who's just picked something up. Who's just like, wow, look at this. Hey, everyone. That kind of, this is great. Hey, look, that's the time. That's the time to learn from somebody when they're really enthusiastic about it, because they're so inspired by what they've just discovered. And they're not so, weighed down by the tedium of it all and bored by it.
I just had a taste of this. This is promoting a CPPCon, but we're doing some videos to promote. And so we're doing interviews with some speakers. I just watched the interview with Claire McCrae.
Claire McCrae.
Yes. Yeah. And the passion that she has for what she's about to talk about is you just can't wait to see this talk, because, just listening to her talk about it. I mean, it's not like, I don't know what she did exactly, but it was like, she really wants to give this talk. She's really excited about it. And it's what she's just now learning. And that's what she's excited about. And it's exactly, when you said what you said, it made me think of her, because I just saw that video about a week ago.
Claire is great. Everyone should watch a Claire McCrae talk.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm not sure when all those videos are going to come out. I guess that's my job to figure that out. But we are, we're interviewing some speakers, and I need to get those up on the web. I also just last night, it was just last night, watched the promo video for CPPCon 2019, which is, it's done by the same people, but it's done a little bit. If you've seen the previous promo videos, there's a lot of high energy and kind of some rock and roll, and gets you really excited. This one's more laid back, but it's also a little more thoughtful, a little bit more listening to what people are saying and stuff like that. I'm really excited about the promo video. Of course, I'm always, every year, get excited about that. Makes me want to go to the conference, which I guess is the point, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great conference. You do great work, and it's a big part of the community, isn't it? Like CPPCon.
But again, the selfish things that I get out of that, it's exactly in keeping with what you were saying. We need people to stand up and do things in the community, and what you will find out is that is a great investment of your time. It sounds like, well, let somebody else organize this, and I'll just attend and listen, and I'll get all the benefit. And it turns out that the person organizing it is getting a lot of benefit that you're not seeing. They are meeting people, but they're also learning about the technology in a way that just someone sitting in the audience isn't learning.
Yeah. I enjoy cakes I make more than I enjoy cakes other people make. It's like kind of, well, I made this. The satisfaction of eating a cake that I made that I didn't burn. I'm not great at making cakes. Don't ask me to start baking. It's not a thing I'm very good at. But that.
I was going to say, is there a confession about burned cakes you need to share here?
Yeah. I don't think it needs sharing.
So we've talked about We've talked about linear algebra. We've talked about audio. And one of the things I was going to ask you about is the conference that you do.
Mm-hmm.
That's local to where you are, and you just have people from all over the country come. About how many people is that?
It's about 100.
100 people. And it's how long?
It's a one-day thing. It's a single track. We'll have 5 slots plus including the keynote speaker. We have people coming from 4 studios. So some people will share a slot with other studios, and we might do so. We mix and match. Really, I'm more interested in just giving everybody a go. I say, look, have you got a talk? Maybe it's a 15-minute talk or a 20-minute talk or a 45-minute talk optimally, and we just mix and match and put it all together.
So have you turned any of these people into someone who's speaking at local groups or conferences?
That's a good question. I'd need to go back and take a look. Probably.
Because of course that's where Phil probably was thinking the same thing. That's immediately where mine went. Oh, speakers.
Yeah.
You're grooming speakers for us.
Yeah, and I think that's something that probably doesn't. You can't say this enough. You can't say this too many times that we need speakers. We really do need more speakers. There's a big danger that conferences just turn into a circus, like the tennis championships. You go and watch tennis in all over the world, and you're watching the same people playing tennis all the time. And in the same way with conferences, there's a danger that, obviously I speak at quite a lot of conferences, and I'm gratified that people want to hear me speak. But we need more voices. We need more diversity of voices in conferences.
Yeah.
You don't need to be Herb Sutter. You don't need to have 40 years of C++, well, 36 years of C++ experience. All you need to do is be able to talk about something. People will come and listen.
Right. Well, assuming what you're talking, I mean, if you set out and say, well, a talk has to be about this, so I better do that. No, you make the talk about what you want to talk about. That's what, I remember even after I had done conference speaking and I felt like I was well in my stride as a presenter and I had done class instruction, I was asked to give a presentation at my company, and it was about a project that I was kind of involved with a little bit, and it was not a technical thing. It was something to do with company HR kinds of stuff, but I was part of it. And I realized as I was giving that talk that not only was everybody else in the room bored, but I was bored listening to myself give this talk. The reason that I can give a good talk about C++ is that I'm passionate about C++.
Yeah.
And there are people who think, oh, if you can teach anything, or if you can speak about anything. Maybe that's true for some people, but I have to be speaking about what I'm passionate about, or I don't do it well. And the reason that I do it well to the extent that I do is because I just get so involved in the topic that I don't think about, is my posture right? Are my hands right? Am I doing all these things? Which is not to say that I shouldn't go to the E3 training at CPPCon from Kate and Andre and John and learn more. But a lot of that stuff just comes natural for me simply because I'm not thinking about it. If I was thinking about it, I would do the wrong thing. Instead, I'm thinking about C++ and this optimization and how to make this exception safe and all these kinds of things. And I'm so wrapped up in that I don't even think about what I'm doing, and it just flows. And if I were talking about, well, this is this thing the company is working on, and we were comparing this kind of health insurance plan to this kind of thing or something like that. Exactly. Even I would be bored, even if I'm doing the talk, right? So if you're not passionate about it, forget it. But that's but what I was saying is, if you think, oh, I want to give a talk on C++, I better go learn something about, well, yes, you're going to learn a lot, but you should learn about what you're already doing.
Yeah.
And think about how to present what you're already doing. What are you already the expert in? What do you care about?
Yeah.
And maybe it is something you want to learn about, because maybe that's what you care about. It's like, I've always wondered, how does this work, or how do we do this, or what's the best way? So you do some research, but it's your passion, and you can do that talk.
Yeah, no, I entirely agree. And actually, last year you did a talk at ACCU on The Beast is Back.
Yeah.
And that was a great, it was blindingly obvious to everybody in the room that you loved what you were talking about. You just went through that, and it was a great perspective. And yeah, you're right. Passion is it's certainly half the requirement.
Right. I love giving that talk. I think it's a lot of fun, and you're not going to learn a lot about what's that.
Great picture sourcing as well.
Yes, and I have allowed it to be recorded, but I don't own any of the rights to any of those pictures. So it's kind of like, well, I guess you can record it. I'd rather you not, but okay.
Wait for the takedown on YouTube.
Yeah, exactly.
I've had to do that recently. It's a thing.
Oh, really?
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do be careful.
Yeah. Well, like I said, yeah. Anyway.
On that note.
On that note, yeah.
Well, we do have a few news items.
We didn't
that
do the news items, did we?
Oh,
sorry about that, Guy. We jumped right in, and what do we want?
It's John's passion, you see.
Yes.
Obviously, Cologne coming right up.
Mm-hmm.
Next week.
I'll be there.
I actually said this to Herb in an email. I sent him this email, and I said, what does it say about how badly C++ 20 smells that it needs to go to Cologne? And he started defending it and saying, well, I think it's in better state than C++ 17. It's like, Herb, it's a joke. It's a joke.
Switch off. It's fine.
Cologne, Herb, Cologne. Get it? Cologne. But I can't believe that joke hadn't been done to death, and apparently it didn't even occur to him.
I think he made his German side defensive.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yes, he's probably hearing Köln, not Cologne.
Yeah. Oh, that could be. All right. So what else is going on? The core C++ videos mostly up. Are some missing? Is that the?
Well, when I wrote that note, I think most of them were up, but I know that mine wasn't up because I had to do some extra editing because the slides weren't recorded at the time, and I had to record those myself. So I knew mine wasn't up, so I knew they weren't all up. But now mine is up, so maybe they're all up. I don't know. The only way to find out
up anyway.
The only way to find out is to go and watch them all.
Oh, okay. All right.
Oh, that's what someone's taken care of.
And the videos for Italian C++ conference and CPPP videos expected in a week or two.
That was a message that I saw in a channel the other day.
Okay.
So I don't know how optimistic that is.
And for people who are interested in this, that conference was in fact in English for most of the sessions. It was in French only for the beginner session, is my understanding.
Oui.
Yes. And CPPCon, we just sent out feedback. Well, feedback in two senses. One is, finally, this is really embarrassing. I was at 95% complete at getting all of the speaker results from last year's talks, all the survey results. But there was a bunch of stuff that I was going to have to sort through, and I finally got that done and sent it out. And the deadline was, if you're telling people whether or not they're accepted for 19, you better give them the results from 18 at the same time. So I had a long weekend getting all that done, and then really just this morning, a few hours ago, we sent out results to speakers about whether or not they were accepted. And this is the time of year. I'm both excited about the conference, but I'm very depressed about the number of high quality talks we say no to, because this year I think as a percent, we got a higher percentage of submissions than we have spaces. And I know as a raw number, we literally said no to enough sessions that we could have done 2 conferences, and we could do twice as many tracks. Now, I would like to think that the ones we said yes to are the higher quality ones, or at least a better fit, or make a better conference more rounded or something like that. But there were enough talks that we would have been happy to have to fill another 6 tracks easy. We said no to that many sessions, and it's just heartbreaking, because those are people who are passionate about wanting to say something. So
been there.
Yeah, that's really tough to do. And Meeting C++, the speaker notifications are out.
Yep.
Yep.
I was accepted. I submitted 2 talks and was accepted on the one I was least excited about, but I guess that happens. I talk to speakers about that a lot, and they will say, "Oh, you took that one. Oh, but this is the one I really wanted." And it's like, well, the committee was more excited about this one.
Yeah.
And yeah,
You got the talk on stock options and insurance, did you?
that's right. That's right.
Yes. I should be at Meeting C++. I'm speaking as well. It'll be great. I love Berlin. It's a really great conference, Meeting C++.
Yeah. And for people from this country, if you are thinking maybe one year I want to do it, you could combine this. The timing is perfect. You can go to Belfast for the standards meeting and sit in on the standards meeting. And then there's a 2-day ACCU conference also in Belfast. This isn't a coincidence. They wanted to do that. And so they will get, I'm kind of jealous about this because there's people who are on the committee who I can never get to speak because they say, well, I go to all these committee meetings. My company won't let me go to a conference too. But ACCU is leveraging that because they got all these people there who don't normally speak at conferences. So if you could go to that 2-day ACCU conference, you're going to get to see speakers you don't normally get to see at a conference. And then that same week, you hop over from, I make it sound so simple, you hop over from Belfast to Berlin. It's the same continent. How hard can it be, right? And there's trains everywhere. I think you can take a train directly from Belfast into Berlin. I'm pretty sure you can.
No, you can't. Too much water, I'm afraid.
Oh, well.
You can take a ferry. You can take a ferry from Belfast to
Liverpool.
Liverpool, yes, and then you can take a train to St Pancras, and then you can take the Eurostar to Belgium. Eurostar to Brussels, and then Brussels to Berlin. That would work.
Yep.
Although I planned it, but
there are definitely some people taking the train from London.
Yes, there are people. There are people taking the train to Cologne actually from London for the committees.
Well, there you go. There you go. Anyway, I'm just saying, Meeting C++ is well timed this year because of because of the if you've been ever thinking about maybe I should come from the US and go to Berlin and see that conference, this might be the year. Make it a 2-week trip, make it worth crossing the Atlantic and do some cool stuff.
Well, additionally to that, of course, is C++ Russia in St Petersburg, which is the 3 days immediately before Belfast. So if you're feeling really gluttonous, you could get 3 conferences in 2.5 weeks.
3 conferences and a standards committee
meeting. And a standards meeting, 2.5 weeks. That's my idea of heaven, frankly.
That's right. That's right. We almost have the calendar completely booked. You could probably go from from C++ event to C++ event if you include standards meetings and
recovering from jet lag.
Yeah, that's right. Well, you would just live in a permanent state of jet lag.
Well, actually, from next week, I'll only have, I think, 2 weeks at home between then and the end of September.
Yeah.
Blimey.
So, yeah.
Gosh, we're busy people, aren't we?
Yes.
All right. So what else do we need to talk about? Speaker notifications out for Meeting C++, and then Sea Lion 2019.
Yeah, I did want to just mention, I'll be very quick because we're running over time, but
yeah,
the Sea Lion 2019.2 EAP is still running. I've mentioned it before, but the last one from last week included the new Microsoft debugger. So we've had to write our own based on LDB. So that's now in if you're on Windows, and also restored the unused includes inspection. So it'll actually tell you if headers that you're including are not actually used, and there's different levels to it as well. So you can say whether they're not used, but they may be used transitively, or you can say just not used in this file. So that's really useful and gives you sort of an include what you use functionality built into the IDE.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll talk a little bit more about that after the release, but I wanted to mention that this week as well.
Okay, cool. So you can put that in the notes, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
of
course.
Okay, well, we have gone over, but it's been fun. Thanks a lot, Guy.
Oh, it's been great.
Yeah, thank you.
Love the show. Have me back.
All right. Well, usually at this time, we wish everyone safe coding. And I mean that particularly if your coding involves traveling to another continent. So everybody, safe coding.
Safe coding.
Safe coding, everyone.